Well, it's time to make another video on the Monster Hunter series. Now, this is a topic that I've been really wanting to talk about ever since I made my top 10 least favorite Monster Hunter monsters, because there were a lot of subspecies that I really hate that I didn't get to talk about in that video. There are some subspecies that I hate more than the monsters that appeared in my top 10 least favorite Monster Hunter monsters video. If you've seen any of my other Monster Hunter videos, then you would know that I love the Monster Hunter series. But just because I love the series doesn't mean that the series doesn't have a few mistakes here and there. These are 10 subspecies that I don't think represent the Monster Hunter series well, and it's a shame. Now before I get into this video, I should mention there will be no Elder Dragons on this list. And also, if there's a monster that has 2 subspecies, I'll only mention one of them, even if I hate both of them. Speaking of monsters with multiple subspecies, I will not be talking about the Azure or Silver Rathalos because I've already shredded the Rathalos to death in a previous video. So I feel like anything I would say in this video would be kind of redundant. If I was to include a Rathalos subspecies on this video, it would definitely be Silver Rathalos, and it would probably be at the number 4 spot. Yeah, only in the number 4 spot. I think that should be a good representation to show you how much I hate some of these subspecies. One thing I should mention that's very important to mention now before we get any further in this video. This is my personal opinion, so if a monster that you really like appears on this list, don't take it personally. I just don't like it. So now that I mentioned all the rules to this video, let's hunt some really horrible subspecies. Right off the bat, this first subspecies comes from a monster that is pretty much a clone of another monster that a lot of people don't like. Fortunately, you don't have to encounter this monster that much, which is the main reason why it's only at the number 10 spot. This subspecies comes from Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate and is one of the saddest excuses of a monster that I've ever seen in the series. I mean, a good amount of the subspecies on this list do have enough changes to them and look different enough to be considered a decent subspecies, but this one doesn't even try to be different. It's a ripoff of a ripoff. That will make sense in a second. Now, I already really hate the original version of this monster, because in my opinion, it is the most unoriginal monster in the series to this date. So the fact that this subspecies does pretty much nothing different is quite disappointing. Now, if you haven't pieced together what monster I'm talking about, then you're lucky, because you probably have never fought it. The subspecies is the Ruby BASARIOS. I can't even begin to tell y'all how mad this monster and its subspecies makes me feel. So, if you've never gotten the luxury to fight the BASARIOS or the Ruby BASARIOS, then let me tell you what the fight's like. Do you remember that other rock monster that people don't enjoy? Its name is Gypceros. It's a monster that uses the fire and sleep element. Well, the fight with BASARIOS and Ruby BASARIOS is just like that fight, but instead of using sleep, like the Gypceros does, they use poison. Are you f***ing kidding me? Capcom, can you really be that lazy? You know I love Monster Hunter to death, but there is no excuse for this f***up. Just because you give a monster a new element to use does not mean that it's a completely different fight. You have to change their attack pattern and at least try to not make their appearance too similar to each other. Now that I've ripped BASARIOS a new one, it's time to get into why I hate this subspecies even more. I'm gonna read y'all something that comes directly from the official Monster Hunter wiki. This is the ability section of the Ruby BASARIOS on the official page. Remember, this is what makes the Ruby BASARIOS different compared to the normal one. Are you guys ready? Its shell is highly resistant to damage and is difficult to penetrate. It is capable of launching crystals from its back by shaking its body back and forth. Yeah, that is the only difference between the BASARIOS and the Ruby BASARIOS. Now, I've stated before, the only reason why I put the Ruby BASARIOS at the number 10 spot is because I don't have a super personal hatred for the subspecies like I do with some other ones on this list. This is something that disappoints me in a different way. This makes me disappointed at Capcom because they knew that this monster was a cheap clone of Gypceros. And another thing about this is that this monster was made in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. Are you kidding, Capcom? You made some great subspecies for 4 Ultimate, but you f***ed up royally with this one, because it's not like this monster's already a f*** up or anything. At least the BASARIOS hasn't returned in the game since Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. Oh gosh, it's in Monster Hunter Double Cross. Great. these next two choices are going to be the most controversial subspecies on this list. I know that a lot of people really enjoy these subspecies, and I know that I'm going to get roasted hard in the comment section for including them. You know what? I don't care. I need to voice my opinion on these subspecies and why I hate them so much. So, I guess we'll start off with the less controversial choice. Before I go any further with this segment of the video, I should just say that I am aware that the older subspecies did not change a lot from the original monster until Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, so this one gets a pass in that aspect. Now, this subspecies comes from Monster Hunter Freedom and is considered to be a classic subspecies because it was one of the first ones in the series. As you guys might know, there is a certain monster that I also don't really like that I said I would talk about later, and that is, of course, the Rathian. Now, which one of the Rathian subspecies am I going to put on this list? Well, it was hard for me to choose between them, but after thinking about it, I had to choose the pink Rathian. I know that a lot of y'all, especially the people who've been playing the series since the first game, are going to be disappointed in me putting the pink Rathian on this list, and for me putting it above the ruby BASARIOS. Well, let me explain my reasoning for doing this, and then you are more than welcome to be mad at me and tell me why you don't think this subspecies deserves to be on this list. One thing that I will admit about the pink Rathian is that the Rathian is definitely pretty in pink. I personally think the Rathian looks way better in pink than she does in green. The appearance definitely changes it enough to be noticeable, which is always a plus. Okay, so now that I've said the thing that I like about the pink Rathian, it's time to tell y'all what I dislike about her. For starters, the pink Rathian is very annoying to fight. Now, I'm not calling her cheap by any means, because she is not a cheap monster. I am, however, calling her annoying because of one new attack that she gets. The regular Rathian will fly in the air and spin in a cartwheel formation to try to hit you with its tail to poison you. The pink Rathian, however, spins in a figure 8 formation as well as spinning in the cartwheel formation. Since she now has two different aerial methods of poisoning you, she will be able to use both poisoning attacks in a row. This means that you will now be getting poisoned even more than you would if you were fighting the regular Rathian. I hate this subspecies because I feel that the pink Rathian is the worst about spamming poison attacks compared to the regular and even the gold Rathian. Since the regular Rathian doesn't have this new poison attack, she doesn't stay in the air for as long as the pink Rathian will. And the gold Rathian has enough new attacks so she won't stay in the air for as long. And she doesn't spam those two poison attacks like the pink Rathian does. Now, I'm not saying that the pink Rathian will always spam those same two poison attacks over and over. I am saying that when she does spam those two attacks over and over again, it can make the fight very annoying, because you'll have to wait quite a bit before she is done spinning in the sky. And once she does get down, she could get up again and do another aerial attack, and you have to wait even longer for the animation to be done with. I feel that this breaks the pace of the fight, because of how much waiting time there is when the pink Rathian gets into this aerial combo that she likes to do. I don't feel that the Rathian and the gold Rathian have this problem because of the same reasons that I said beforehand. Also, the range of her tail is way too long. I could be completely out of her range and she could still hit me with that figure 8 spin. I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me. The pink Rathian is more sporadic than the regular and gold Rathian, which is a good thing. Even though she's sporadic, it's still easy to tell when she's going to do her tail attack. So the fight isn't as hard as I would like it to be, which is pretty disappointing. So there might have been some people who were pissed off that I put the pink Rathian on my list, but there's going to be a riot of dislikes and negative comments for me putting this subspecies on the list, because this subspecies is actually pretty good compared to the rest of the subspecies on this list. This subspecies is on here for personal reasons, and I'll get into that in a second. Now, this is another subspecies that I really wanted to like, because of how much it changes from the original version. Just because the subspecies changes its fighting style a lot and looks completely different does not mean that it improves the fight. It can actually do the opposite. Now, before I tell y'all what the subspecies is, I want y'all to remember, this is my opinion. I know that there are a lot of people that really love this subspecies. I just personally don't. Okay, well, I guess it's time to piss off some people. The subspecies is the BASARIOS. Okay, I know that none of y'all were expecting me to put the Sand Barioth on my list. Honestly, I wasn't either. But as I got to fighting it and I saw the changes that it made, I started to not enjoy the fight nearly as much as I enjoyed the fight with the original Barioth. Let me explain why. So the Barioth's fighting style changes significantly from the originals. Instead of using its speed to its advantage like the Barioth does, it'll use more projectiles and tornadoes, which is kind of disappointing because the Barioth is known for its deadly speed and combos. The Sand Barioth loses those qualities because it focuses more on shooting tornadoes and wind balls at you than it does using its speed to directly hit you. However, there's one attack that the Sand Barioth has that the original one doesn't have that makes the Sand Barioth really stand out. It can ride in the tornadoes that it creates and then launch itself towards you. I think that this attack is very clever, but I absolutely hate it. I feel that, like the Pink Rathian's poison attacks, the Sand Barioth uses this move way more than it should, especially as it gets closer to dying. This is where my personal hate for the Sand Barioth comes into the equation. When I was playing through the story mode of Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, I had a quest where I had to fight the Sand Barioth. I was excited to see what this version of the fight was going to be like. As the fight started, I noticed that this version of the Barioth was way weaker and easier to fight than the Barioth, which was pretty upsetting for me because one of the main reasons why I like the Barioth is because it's so much more satisfying to take down a harder monster than it is to take down something that's a pushover. Now the fight gets worse because as it was starting to die, it would start spamming the ever-living hell out of that attack where it rides in the tornado. As you guys know, you can't attack the Sand Barioth while it's doing this attack. I had already used most of my materials fighting this monster because it was a new fight for me and I was still learning how to fight it. So when it was doing the flying attack, I would keep having to dodge that attack when I had very low stamina. Keep in mind that when I was fighting the Sand Barioth, I had little to no money in the game, and I didn't have an abundance of supplies. So it finally landed the tornado attack on me and killed me. I felt that this is one of the worst kills that a monster has ever had on me, because I felt that it was spamming that attack over and over again until it hit me, and that really pissed me off. Finally, I did kill it, and I was so pissed off that I was not at all satisfied that I killed it. So yeah, I really don't like the fight with the Sand Barioth that much because of that experience, as well as the fact that I think that this version of the fight is not nearly as good as the fight with the regular Barioth. This subspecies is interesting because I've seen people either love it or hate it. Obviously you know how I feel about it because of what list it's on. This subspecies is one that just really pisses me off every time I have to fight it, because it's another subspecies that changes quite a bit, but not in a good way. Now honestly, both the original version and the subspecies uses elements that just really piss me off. However, since I hate the original version more, I guess my statement about it changing for the worse isn't entirely true, even though I still don't like the changes that this subspecies makes. It just reminds me of a Khezu wannabe way too much. This subspecies is, of course, the BALEFUL GIGGINOX. Yeah, the point that I made about the BALEFUL GIGGINOX reminding me of a Khezu is the main reason why I don't like this subspecies. Now, I'm happy that the BALEFUL GIGGINOX changes quite a bit from the original, but this gets ruined because it becomes more like another monster that already exists, kind of like how the BASARIOS is a ripoff of the Gravios. I hate the GIGGINOX quite a bit, but at least its fight is quite different from the Khezu and the Red Khezu. You might be wondering if the BALEFUL GIGGINOX adds anything new to the fight. It does have some new attacks, but those new attacks are just ripoffs of the Khezu's attacks. This makes the fight a mixture of two fights that I really hate. So really the BALEFUL GIGGINOX is the unwanted child of a GIGGINOX and a Khezu. Logically, this subspecies should be higher on my list, since the Khezu and the GIGGINOX were so high on my other list. Well, it's not higher on my list because, believe it or not, this subspecies actually doesn't annoy me as much as you would imagine it would. Don't get me wrong, it really makes me mad every time I fight it. It's because most of the time when I get hit, it's my fault that I got hit. I would get hit because I couldn't read its attacks well enough, or I didn't dodge the attack in time. This fight is actually an upgrade to the Khezu's fight, because it had a theme with it, and it doesn't spam Thunder and Paralysis attacks, and it doesn't look as ugly as the GIGGINOX and the Khezu do. Just because the BALEFUL GIGGINOX has a good amount of good traits to it, does not mean that I enjoyed the fight by any means. It does mean that I can acknowledge the improvements that they've made, thus why the BALEFUL GIGGINOX is only number 7 on my list. Alright, this is the point in my list where my choices start to get a little more predictable. This subspecies has the BASARIOS syndrome, meaning that it's a subspecies that pretty much adds nothing new to the table. Now, it's a shame that this subspecies turned out the way it did. I actually really love the original version of this monster. Now, this is another subspecies that was from Monster Hunter Freedom, so it didn't really get much changes made to it because it came out when subspecies didn't really get a lot of changes. So you would think that I'm going to say that this excuses this subspecies from being judged in that aspect. Well, you would be wrong if you said that. With the pink Rathian and the azure Rathian, they did have some changes, being how much longer they would stay in the sky for, or for being more sporadic than the original version. The only thing that the purple Gypceros adds is that I can now use G rank poison. I honestly don't know where to begin. I mean, I have so much to say about this subspecies. It has no new or original attacks, it has very little to no color change, and it doesn't change up its method of attack. As I stated before, the first batch of subspecies didn't really get a bunch of changes to them because of the limitations and whatnot. But monsters like the pink Rathian and the azure Rathian were released in the same game as purple Gypceros. I would still consider them to be different enough from their original counterparts to stand out. The purple Gypceros doesn't even get a different color scheme. Every monster that I mentioned on this list so far has a different color scheme, or a different looking appearance to them. Even the Ruby BASARIOS looks a little different from the original version. The regular Gypceros is already purple. Why couldn't you have chosen a different shade of purple that made it stand out more? I mean, you could have used any one of these shades of purple, and it didn't take me that long to find them. Purple Gypceros is like the shiny Gengar of the Monster Hunter world. It's barely noticeable, and everyone tries to forget about it because of how lazy and horrible it is. Oh, and I haven't even gotten started with its fight yet. Oh man, its fight is the definition of copying and pasting. It still has the same movement pattern, flashing attack, poison attacks, and that fake dying move, which I actually find to be really cool. But that's besides the point. There's only one thing that is different from the purple Gypceros, and that is that it uses G rank poison, which I mentioned earlier. Capcom, G rank poison is not enough of a change to be considered a different fight. Maybe this could have been acceptable if the fight was made harder in any way, but it doesn't. The Gypceros poison attacks are way too easy to dodge, so this poison is not going to make the fight any harder. There is nothing different from this fight whatsoever. It is bland, forgettable, and downright embarrassing on Capcom's part. This is a monster that I've been waiting to talk about on my channel. When I was making my video about my least favorite monsters from the Monster Hunter series, I actually forgot all about this monster, and now I have a special spot for it here on this video. This is another subspecies that has the BASARIOS syndrome, which for this monster's case is not good. I will admit that this subspecies actually looks way better than its original version does. That is all that it has going for it. As for the fight, well, it's pretty much the same ballerina dancing fool that the DURAMBOROS has always been. Yeah, I'm talking about the Rust DURAMBOROS. Before I start talking about the Rust DURAMBOROS, I need to talk about the regular one. The DURAMBOROS is one of the biggest, no pun intended, pain in the asses to fight, especially solo, because of how much health it has. It is understandable that this monster has so much health. It is pretty massive, but if you're gonna make a massive monster that's super bulky, then you need to give it more clear signs to when it's getting weaker. Monsters like the Gypceros and BASARIOS have clear signs to them getting weaker. As you fight them more, their backs and chests break apart, and it is very obvious that they have taken a lot of damage and are close to dying. Now, it's possible to break DURAMBOROS' back, but since it has so much health, and the back is kind of in an awkward spot, especially in 3U, you most likely will not break it. And you can also break a part of its tail off and break its horns. Those are the only 3 clear breaks on the monster. So my point is, the DURAMBOROS fight is a fight that feels like no matter how much you hit it, you have no idea if it's getting anywhere near dying. This is, in my opinion, a pretty big problem when it comes to the Monster Hunter. Also, another thing that I should mention is that as well as having a lot of health, the DURAMBOROS has a surprising amount of speed for a monster of its size. I mean, it's able to spin on its tippy toes and launch itself at you from across the room. This is a monster that is very unbalanced when it comes to its stats. I always hate having to fight this monster because I know that I'm about to do a very bland fight that takes way longer than it should. Okay, so those are all my important reasons to why I hate the DURAMBOROS. Now let's talk about why I hate the Rust DURAMBOROS. The Rust DURAMBOROS is another subspecies that's just a copy and paste from the original version. Rust DURAMBOROS was made in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, so it does not have the same excuse that the Pink Rathian and Azure Rathalos have when it comes to why there's less new features. It is especially bad for this subspecies because it is still just as bulky, if not more bulky than the original DURAMBOROS. So now there are two monsters that have bland fights that take way too long to complete. Great! Well, at least they changed DURAMBOROS' tail from a mallet to an axe. By the way, Capcom, changing one very minor detail on a subspecies and recoloring it does not make it a new and original monster. It just shows how lazy you can get with some of your subspecies. Oh boy, I get to talk about this monster again. Now, I've already talked about this monster in great detail, so I'm only going to discuss what new features or habits that this subspecies brings to the fight, which, spoiler alert, it pretty much brings nothing new or good to the fight. When you clicked on this video, you just had to know that this subspecies would be in the video because it is one of the most infamous subspecies in the whole series. If you don't know what subspecies I'm talking about, then consider yourself lucky because you've probably never had to deal with this piece of utter shit. I mean, there are monsters that have one or two flaws that can ruin a fight, but this monster has nothing going for it. It's an awkward design, an aggravatingly annoying fight, a horrible subspecies, and it is known as one of the cheapest monsters in all of Monster Hunter. Actually, its design is pretty creative, and it stands out quite a bit compared to some of the other monsters in the series. And its subspecies actually looks way better than the original. Okay, I'm getting off topic. Anyway, it's time to talk about the green Plesioth. I thought I was done talking about the Plesioth. I wanted to put this thing behind me, but here I am getting to talk about its even worse subspecies, the green Plesioth. Okay, let's just get this out of the way. The reason why I think the green Plesioth is worse than the original version is because of one very important change that it makes. It now uses more water attacks and likes being in the water more than the original Plesioth. This means that you will now have to deal with more water beams, annoying swim charges, and just having to fight it underwater in general. Now, I really love the underwater mechanic in Monster Hunter, as I've said over and over again. But I hate fighting the Plesioth and the green Plesioth underwater because of its spastic movements and its water beam. So now I have to deal with even more of this bull. It makes this fight one of the most annoying fights in the whole series. I actually have a clip that I want to show you guys that proves my point, just in case you don't believe me about how the green Plesioth likes to be in water more than the original version. As you can see, it just stays there, spamming that water beam as we wail on the shore so we can hit it again. This is just pathetic to watch this clip, because this game is making us wait to fight a monster because it refuses to leave the water even though no one is there and we are trying to bait it on land. Oh, and I haven't even gotten to the fact that it also doesn't add any new attacks. Yeah, I know that it was from Monster Hunter Freedom, but in that game, there was no swimming mechanic. So the only new thing that it could do is spam the water beam a lot more than the original version. Why did Capcom think this is a good idea? It's just lazy. As I've said many times now in this video, Capcom had the chance to add more to some of the other subspecies from Monster Hunter Freedom, because the Pink Rathian and the Azure Rathalos got enough change to them, so why didn't they try to do the same for green Plesioth? This is just another thing to add to why the Plesioth is and will always be a horrible monster. Okay, everyone knew that this subspecies was going to be in my list because of the thumbnail and the fact that I referred to the subspecies as being horrible a bunch of times throughout my top 10 Monster Hunter subspecies video. I'm never going to draw out this piece of intro because it doesn't deserve to have any sort of build up to it. It's the Red Khezu, everyone. I bet y'all are shocked, pun intended, that this subspecies is only number 3 on my list. Well, there are 2 subspecies that I believe are 20 times as bad as this subspecies, but I'll get into more detail about those subspecies later in the video. The Red Khezu is another one of those Monster Hunter Freedom subspecies, so by that logic, it's safe from being judged in that aspect of lacking new features. Oh wait, no it's not, because like the purple Gypceros, this monster adds nothing new to the fight. I feel like I've said that so many times in this video, it's ridiculous. There is nothing special about this subspecies. At least with the purple Gypceros, it had some stronger poison. I cannot believe I just said that. I just said at least the purple Gypceros add some stronger poison. The Red Khezu doesn't have stronger thunder attacks, it doesn't add any new or original ideas, it still doesn't have a theme, which I'll get into later, and it doesn't have any good weapons or armor. Remember how I said you can't really tell that the purple Gypceros is a different color from the original? Well, I wish that was the case for the Red Khezu. This thing's color scheme is awful. Out of all the colors you could have made it, why did you go with this disgusting bloody red color? This just makes it look like a bloody uncircumcised that is pleading to be put out of its misery. Capcom, red does not look good on the Khezu. I think I understand what Capcom was trying to go for with it being red. I think they were trying to make it look bloody because it's a monster that has a horror theme to it. That's just a theory. A game! Guys, I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I guess I took it a little too far there. Anyway, if they're going for the bloody horror theme, then instead of making the whole thing red, then why not have red splotches on its body and make the skin pink? That would have made it look gross. It wouldn't have made it look like a 3-year-old got on Photoshop, used the bucket tool on the white Khezu, and made it red. Okay, so I focused on the coloring for way too long. Now let's move on to the next thing I hate about the Khezu. The fact that it has no theme. Before you even write the comment that I know probably half you have typed out now, I am aware that the Khezu has no theme because it has no eyes and it doesn't have a theme on purpose to make the atmosphere more intense. I think that's really stupid. I think that it makes the fight extremely awkward. Every single monster in the series has some sort of theme with it when you're fighting it, so when all you hear are the Khezu's roars and some background noise, it can be very distracting. I know that this is a small nitpick, but I want to explain everything that I can that's wrong with this monster. And the final thing I want to address is its fight. Now, I said that it doesn't add anything new to the fight. Well, that's not entirely true. It has one new move that is so rare that I didn't even notice it until I was recording footage for this video. It can throw a thunderball behind itself. I'm curious to see how many of you guys knew that because honestly, it shocked me to discover this. This is one of the saddest displays of what Capcom subspecies qualifications are. Give the monster one new attack that it will almost never use and paint it a nasty red color. Okay, I've talked about the Red Khezu for way too long now. Let's move on to the last 2 subspecies. These next 2 subspecies might be very surprising to you because I've seen nobody talk about them. These monsters are so bad and so annoying that I might actually need to take a break from Monster Hunter after hunting and talking about them. Now, what subspecies could I possibly be talking about? They both come from monsters that I already really hate, but this first one's on here for a completely different reason than my number 1 choice. My number 1 choice is on my list for way more personal reasons than this one. This one is on my list because this is the perfect example on how to make a horrible monster even worse and more hated. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the one and the only Emerald Congalala. I've already talked about how the Congalala is a monster that pisses me off because of its horrible design, how dumb the main mechanic is, and how the fight is boring and way too easy compared to some of the other monsters in the series. Well, the Emerald Congalala amps up all those qualities that makes the original fight so bad. It farts more than the original Congalala, which is the only difference between the original and the Emerald Congalala, but I'll get into that in a moment. It goes down even faster than the original, and the fight is even more boring than the original. When I saw that the only difference between the Emerald Congalala and the original is that the Emerald Congalala farts more, I assumed that it came from Monster Hunter Freedom. But it doesn't. It actually comes from Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. This could have been excusable if there were software limitations, so they weren't able to add many new qualities to the subspecies. But that is not the case because, as I've said before, Monster Hunter Freedom Unite is when Capcom started to make their subspecies more different from the original version. Adding more farts to a monster that already farts doesn't make it a brand new monster, it just makes it the same monster that farts more and is now green. Oh, sorry, I meant to say emerald. Oh, and you can't forget how the Emerald Congalala has a bigger head now. That is essential to making a good subspecies. Okay, I know at this point I'm nitpicking, but come on. That's just the stupidest ever. Why did Capcom think that making its head bigger would make it stand out more? I think that they were trying to distract us from noticing that this fight is utter and brings nothing new to the table. Speaking of its fight, I find its fight to be extremely boring because all the Emerald Congalala does is fart, burp, and do belly flops. This gets old real fast. So seeing that the Emerald Congalala just does the same thing, but with more farting, it's just a reminder to how boring this monster really is compared to most of the other monsters. And one thing I should mention that I didn't mention when I last talked about the Congalala is that it has the ability to eat mushrooms and get new elements from them. So that Congalala can eat a poison mushroom and be able to poison you with its burps. In Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate, Capcom thought it would be cool if the Emerald Congalala got a little bit of an upgrade. They gave it the ability to use the blast element when it eats a blast pepper. I will admit that that is a step in the right direction for fixing this subspecies. I knew when I started making Monster Hunter Top 10s that I would eventually have to mention this subspecies. Remember how I said I hated the Rathian the most? Well, that was a lie. I believe that this subspecies is a million times worse than that monster. And I know I'm going to get so many comments saying, "Oh Ryan, this monster's a joke. I could solo it in 3 minutes. Ryan, you probably hate this monster because you suck at Monster Hunter." Well, I know that it's an extremely easy monster. As I said earlier, this choice is extremely personal, and I'm going to get into why. This might come out of nowhere because the original version of this monster was not that high on my list. Well, I honestly think the original version of this fight is way better to deal with than this version of it. Okay, I'm sorry for all this build-up, but I'm doing it so I have more time to avoid talking about it because I really can't stand this monster. Everyone has one thing that drives them crazy in their beloved video game, and for me, that's the purple f***ing Ludroth. I don't rage much, so when I do rage, it's gotta be about something that really pisses me off. The purple Ludroth is one monster that I could rage about for hours, but since I'm trying to keep this video under an hour, I will try to make this segment of the video as brief as possible. Also, I'm sorry ahead of time for my swearing. Anyway, let's talk about the purple Ludroth. The purple Ludroth is the cheapest monster in Monster Hunter for me. Let me explain. Every single attack that it has is poison based. There is not one attack that I can think of that does not use poison. Now, it's understandable that a poison monster will have poison attacks, but can you at least give it one attack that isn't poison? I mean, I feel like I get poisoned by this thing every 30 seconds, and every time I go to heal, it will do that stupid 360 roll or that stupid run while it spits more poison and gets me re-poisoned. This is the definition of an annoying fight. Now, the fight's really easy. It's just so annoying to get poisoned all the freaking time, have to heal, do that stupid flex animation, and then get poisoned again because the flex animation takes so long and it spits those poison balls or that poison body slam really quickly. Oh, and its design? Its fucking design is horrible. First of all, it's not even fucking purple. It's pink. It looks like the Royal Ludroth got inside a cotton candy machine, got stuck in that swirled around for about 30 minutes, and then came out this pink atrocity. In Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, in order to get into high rank, you have to fight the purple Ludroth. I was really pissed off because I already hate the Royal Ludroth, so knowing that it had a subspecies that I had to fight in order to get into high rank was very disappointing. I would have loved to have done a great Jaggy, or a great Broggy, or a great Baggy, something easy to start off with. I know why Capcom did this, because they wanted to introduce you with subspecies, which I think is really great. Now, I did everything I could to get prepared for this quest. I bought 10 antidotes, I bought 10 potions, I got 10 mega potions, I ate for weakener, I had energy drinks. I was prepared for this. I went on the quest, and I triple carded. After 35 minutes of grinding it, I triple carded. I was so pissed off. I restarted my game, and I went back to the fight. I ran out of time the second time, and I was beyond pissed because I was so close to killing it. It was sleeping, and I hit it a few times, and the clock ran out. Oh, that's still pissing me off to this day. Okay, so I reset the game again, get all my shit ready for a third time, go back out there. I waste all my antidotes within the first 15 minutes of the fight because it did that poison spamming I was talking about earlier. I pretty much had to waste my potions and my mega potions to heal my health until the poison wore off. And that is really bad, especially when you're fighting your first high rank monster. Finally, after 35 minutes of fighting it, I killed it. I was so pissed off at this point that I did not want to play Monster Hunter ever again. Of course, I did eventually play again, because, I'm not going to let one monster stop me from playing the game. Fortunately for me, I didn't have to fight it again, which is really nice. Unfortunately, I had to fight it recently, and it reamped that anger that I had way back then. So that's my personal reason why I hate the purple Ludroth. Overall, the fight's annoying, the appearance is stupid, I had that really personal shit with it, and it almost made me stop playing Monster Hunter. I think those are pretty good points to making it my least favorite subspecies of all time, and saying that is the biggest waste of space, because it has nothing good going for it. Actually, the purple Ludroth has one good thing going for it, and I wouldn't have found out what this was if it wasn't for my livestream viewers. They told me to go make the purple Ludroth armor, so I went to go make it, and lo and behold, I discovered that it was actually pretty good armor. So that's the only good thing that purple Ludroth has going for it. Now, when I said the purple Ludroth only has poison attacks, it doesn't obviously only have poison attacks. There are 2 attacks that it has that aren't poison based, which is the 360 roll and the tailspin attack. Other than those 2 attacks, everything else is poison based. I just thought I should mention that before someone told me in the comments that I was wrong. Okay, so that was a lot longer than I thought it was supposed to be. I'm just really glad to have this video done with, because now I've talked about every single type of monster in the Monster Hunter series in pretty good detail. Well, except for the deviants, which I am going to talk about them eventually, but 2 things have to happen. I need to beat Monster Hunter Double Cross and fight all the new deviants in that game. And, well, I'm getting close to hitting 20,000 subscribers. And I want to celebrate hitting 20,000 subscribers by making my top 10 favorite deviants in Monster Hunter. I would like to thank each and every one of you for everything you've done for my channel. I would like to thank you guys for watching the video first of all, for liking or disliking the video because it gives me honest feedback, commenting on the video and telling me what you liked and didn't like about the video, subscribing to the channel because that shows that you like my content enough to subscribe, and that means a lot to me. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. My name's Ryan Kelly, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace! Do you guys want to be kept up to date with my videos and know what top 10s and reviews I'm working on? Well, you can do that by following my Twitter at RLBOfficial. I will post what videos I'm working on, as well as what I'm going to be live streaming on YouTube. Also, if you want to talk to me directly, you can join my Discord by clicking the link in the description below. I will try to get on whenever I can, and I will hunt with you guys and answer any questions that y'all might have. Thanks again for watching the video. I'll see you later. Peace.